Fraud risk management is our topic for this video segment. We are going to be looking specifically at COSO's Fraud Risk Management Guide content. Now, as you all are most likely aware from some of your earlier classes, COSO stands for the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission. Now, we have a distinct group of 5 private sector organizations. Now, these 5 are the AAA, or American Accounting Association, the AICPA, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the FEI, or Financial Executives International, the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and the IMA, or Institute of Management Accountants, which also goes by the Association of Accountants and Financial Professionals in Business. These 5 distinct organizations are dedicated to providing thought leadership through the development of frameworks and guidance on things such as internal controls, enterprise risk management, and fraud deterrence. Now, back in 1992 is when they came out with the first internal control integrated framework. And in 2013, they revised it and published a new and improved version. Now, within this internal control integrated framework, we have 17 principles that all tie back to our 5 internal control components. And this is the cover of what the Internal Control Integrated Framework Guide looks like that's available through COSO. Now, 21 years passed between 1992 and 2013. Why did this group feel that it was necessary to revise the Internal Control Integrated Framework and have the need to republish a new one? Well, a lot of things happened between 92 and 2013, and they went about considering the changes in both business and the operating environments. So within this 21-year span, things such as the S&L crisis, which stands for the Savings and Loans crisis. You guys can do some research if you'd like and look into how that all went down between the years of around 1985 or 86 and 1995. Of course, there was a lot of uproar with the public in regards to losses and things that occurred. We also had such fraudulent escapades as Enron, WorldCom, Farmore, Waste Management, some of which you can also research or watch movies about. And of course, Sarbanes-Oxley had to be passed by Congress back in 2002. So let's think about the changes in business and the operating environment. We've got a different level of expectations regarding governance oversight. We have greater expectations regarding what the board of directors is supposed to be doing, including the audit committee that should be a part of that. We also have greater expectations regarding what management's duties and obligations are. We, of course, know we've also had a great expanse in regards to globalization of operations of companies. And we have a lot of different markets in which our businesses now operate. And with all of that comes greater challenges and greater risk. We have much more complex transactions that are occurring. Many more transactions are occurring. So couple that together, we've got a lot of risk there. We have many, many more laws, rules, regulations, and standards that have been put into place between 1992 and 2013. So we're not just talking about
Sarbanes-Oxley, we're talking about tax code and laws, also things that have been put into play by FASB and GASB. So we've got a lot of things going on that organizations have to be dealing with on an ongoing basis. We, of course, also have more expectations regarding the competency level of not only management and the board of directors, but most definitely auditors. We also expect to hold all of these parties more accountable. You guys should have studied already the independence necessary of our external auditors. You also are very well aware of the fact that the PCAOB, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, got put into place back in 2002 with the passing of Sarbanes-Oxley. Again, I highly recommend that everyone watch the movie about Enron. It's called The Smartest Guys in the Room. Check it out. You'll also see clips within that movie of individuals at Arthur Andersen, the accounting firm, their external auditors who also aided them in attempting to cover up the frauds and things that were going on there. Evolving technologies is something else that's changed quite rapidly, and we're continuing to see technologies changing over time. We're now seeing things discussed regarding Bitcoin and other types of technologies. So we've got a vast expansion of technology being used, lots of activity over the internet, lots of EFT or electronic funds transfers. We've got a lot of online banking. And again, because of these kinds of things, we have more risk, and we have more fraud risk specifically. So based on that, they did do the updated integrated internal controls framework. But we're going to get to the fact that not only did they come up with the new integrated internal controls, but we also have specifically a fraud risk management guide that takes that integrated framework one step further and focuses only on fraud risk. So we, as the public, and I'm talking globally, the general public, we have greater expectations regarding the prevention and detection of fraud, as does the government, the regulators, the creditors, and the investors. Fun fact, are you all aware of where the PCAOB's Washington, D.C. office is? It is actually located in Arthur Andersen's Washington, D.C. former suite. Fun fact. In regards to those 5 internal control components, can you list them? Do you know them by heart? If not, you need to go ahead and work on it, because I can assure you, you will see it not only on a test in this class, but you will see it for sure on the CPA exam for those of you who definitely plan to pursue that. So they are specifically the control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring activities. Now, what can I give you guys to help you remember these 5? Just use the word crime, because it should be a crime if a company does not have a good internal control system in place and functioning as designed and properly functioning. It should be a crime. So crime, we could use the C for control activities, the R for risk assessment, I for information and communication, M for the monitoring activities, and E for the environment, the control environment. So hopefully that will help you remember those 5
areas. So here is what the fraud risk management guide looks like. Again, I have made it available within my class on UTC Learn. You should be able to access that. But why specifically did COSO take it a step further and spend a lot of time and energy on developing and publishing this fraud risk management guide? Well, it's been widely publicized for multiple years now that 5% of a typical organization's revenues are lost every year to fraud. 5% of revenues lost due to fraud. Now that's at a typical organization. Something else you guys need to be aware of is that when it comes to healthcare fraud is estimated to be between 6.7 and 10%. And when you quantify that in dollars, we are talking of billions of dollars each and every year. So COSO, the group, the 5 organizations working together, know that we need to be forward thinking and on the cutting edge. They recognize the importance of comprehensive fraud risk management as a key component of not only that integrated control framework that they published in '92 and revised and republished in 2013, but also as part of enterprise risk management. So this is a complementary guide here to 2 that were published prior to it. So this fraud risk management guide came out in 2016, and it should be utilized with the new and improved version of the internal control integrated framework, but also an enterprise risk management guide that was published and the fraud risk that we're covering. Why do we need to focus? Again, why is it so important for corporations to spend time and therefore money investing in fraud risk management? Well, there was a 2010 study that was done regarding fraudulent activities within U.S. publicly traded companies, and they found that there is a significant negative consequence for investors and executives because the study found that only news of an alleged fraud resulted in a 17% stock price decline within the 2 days surrounding the news announcement. 17% decline within 2 days with just a story breaking of an alleged fraud. And as we have seen over the past couple of decades in relation to frauds that have happened, the fallouts have been immense. Companies have been delisted. They have had to sell off assets. There have been bankruptcies filed. Billions of dollars have been lost by investors and creditors. So it's important that we focus on fraud. I've also posted within our class the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners report to the nations. And this is a report that comes out every 2 years. It's important to point out that each year a large percentage of cases in the study result in losses greater than $1 million. And for 2018, it was 22%. 22% of the cases that were reported had losses of over $1 million. Typical amount of time that a fraud goes on before it's detected for 2018 was reported, I believe, at 16 months. And if you read that report, you will know that the longer that a fraud goes undetected, the greater the amount of loss. So we're going to focus on this class in learning about how frauds are perpetrated, but also how can we detect them earlier? How can we prevent them? And then if they still occur, how can we handle them after the case? So we are going to be looking specifically at this fraud risk management guide, and we have 5 distinct fraud risk management principles, and they link directly to the 17 core internal control principles that are within the integrated framework. Again, you guys have access to this fraud risk management guide. When you go on in your career, you may want to remind your organization that this is a great item to have. You can purchase hard copies through the ACFE, the IIA, or the AICPA for your organization. And again, they do correlate with the integrated framework and also the enterprise risk management. So this particular guide that we're going to be looking at, again, we've got 5 fraud risk management principles, which you guys don't need to try to read this PowerPoint slide right here because I do have these 5 covered distinctly. But I want you to see that each one of these ties back to one of our 5 areas of internal control, but also ties back in with our 17 components or our 17 principles. So this particular fraud risk management guide actually draws upon and updates a prior publication that was put out in 2008 that the AICPA, the IIA, and the ACFE worked on together, that was called Managing the Business Risk of Fraud, a Practical Guide. And we're going to cover each one of these 5 distinctly in its own video segment. One other thing I do want to mention before I turn this off, in regards to these right here, again, we've got these 3, but there's also a 4th one available through COSO for anybody that ends up going to work for a government organization. So maybe Hamilton County, maybe City of Chattanooga, maybe the state of Tennessee. You will want to get yourself a copy of that government one that's available.